Hey guys, welcome back. So now getting back into Justice League Odyssey, to where at this point, after covering the Justice Doom War conclusion, I figured why not get caught up with some of the stories that led up to it as well. But at this point in Odyssey, we're coming to realize much of the provision which Darkseid had set for Perpetua, but those provisions and plans got all messed up. But at least within Odyssey, we get to find out what those plans were. So let's get into it. But first, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to catch the spills every week. And don't forget to hit that bell up top so we can squad up in the comments for the first hour. Alright, so picking right back up from where we had left off last week, where the Odyssey team had finally made their way to Tamarin, and doing so by tracking Darkseid, who had recently went there to collect the other box, but when they arrive here at Tamarin, they're still one step behind Darkseid. But even still, with arriving here, they're met by Blackfire, who's made an agreement with Darkseid, and only to the point of him promising he'll never return to Tamarin again. But when her sister and the others arrive here shortly after he leaves, she feels like this only confirms the rumors of Starfire and the others working with Darkseid. And so now, in addition to Starfire and Blackfire not having the best relationship, to say the least, Blackfire gives orders for them to be pushed out, and also for one of them to be killed to send a message, and anyone, not just Starfire. But with Blackfire doing this, she's super extreme, and she believes that she's doing this for Tamarin, or what's left of it at this point. But even with doing so, there's like no regard for her sister's life, which of course then causes Starfire to go Super Saiyan, which is partially a continuation of what we've been seeing happening with her since entering the Ghost Sector, but it's also a lot of rage from finally finding Tamarin and seeing it in this state, in addition to finally seeing her sister again, and with seeing her, like, the first thing that Blackfire does is order for her to be killed, which I can kind of understand that rubbing Starfire the wrong way. But with Starfire going ham, not only does she almost kill her sister, but she nearly kills the soldiers, which are her own people, so it's like you don't want that on your conscience. But fortunate enough, Cyborg, Azrael, and Jessica Cruz were there, and they were able to stop her and calm her down. But even with doing so, Starfire attempts to talk to Blackfire and explain to her the true reason that they're looking for Darkseid is to stop him. And also during this time, Cyborg has been scanning the area to get more of the answers that Blackfire wouldn't necessarily share, and with doing so, hoping to get an idea of where Darkseid is heading next. But with trying to reason with Blackfire, that of course goes nowhere, because at this point she believes that they're still working with Darkseid, and because of that she asked them to hold true to his promise, which was never to come back to Tamarin. But the thing is, with them being asked to leave, Victor agreed pretty quickly, even though Starfire didn't. But the main reason that he did agree to go was because he had scanned enough information to find out where Darkseid was going, so he wanted to hurry up and leave before they lost Darkseid again. But you also have this issue with Jessica Cruz because her lantern ring is continually running low on power, and with her lantern being on the other side of the Ghost Sector, it's extremely difficult to get back to it. So that's like a whole nother issue in itself, because they're pressed for time to find Darkseid, but at the same time, Jessica only has so much more power before there's nothing she can do. But it's also here where Azrael gives Starfire a bit of a pep talk, because he does have a bit of experience with not knowing himself that well, which we talked about a bit at the beginning of this playlist. And if you think about it, he's really the perfect person to give her this pep talk, with before much of his identity being wrapped around Batman, but more recently he made his way out here in order to find himself better, and more so make his way into his own identity. And really at this point, he just lets Starfire know that regardless of these things going on and where they're at individually at this point, that right now the Ghost Sector needs a Justice League, and at this point they're just gonna have to settle for us how we are, which I thought was pretty dope, because unlike a Justice League Unlimited or a Justice League Odyssey, this is more like a Justice League take it or leave it, which is pretty cool because everybody on this team has their issues. But after this, when they make their way over to Aeolon, which is the last place we had seen Darkseid, but when they get there, Darkseid is just laid out on the ground like, did you get the license plate on that truck? Like, he is looking bad, like he's looking like he's barely holding on. But I gotta say, like, had I walked up on Darkseid and seen him like this, my first question would have been like, not are you okay, but like, who beat you up, man? Like, whoever beat you up, is they still on the loose? And which way did they go so we can go the other way? But of course, that's not the case, because they want to stay here and ask all the questions and get all the answers right here, right now. But it's also at this time where Darkseid tries to warn them of the Eschaton. And I'm not really sure if Eschaton is either singular or plural. And I mean, it could also be plural, because last I seen there was a bunch of them. And if I were Darkseid, I still would have put an S on the end, so it'd be like, yo, I got jumped. Because it's like, I got jumped in one fight, then I came out that fight, got another fight, got jumped. So don't get it twisted. But lo and behold, while they having this conversation, the Eschatons pull back up. And for whatever reason, this scene reminds me of the 40-year-old version, because they just assume that these guys are here protecting Darkseid. And remember, this new eschaton thing is like a god killer situation. So with that, it's kind of like the situation of, oh, you with him? And Darkseid like, yeah, we all gods out here. And the eschaton's like, okay, cool. Well, guess what? You all gonna get it out here. Every last one of you. And it's really messed up because once again, Darkseid's reputation gets them attacked. And at this point, I imagine that they're tired of getting beat up for Darkseid. But when this happens, because the eschaton, they're not really stoppable, at least from what I can see. Because it's like you can fight them off, but then they come back stronger. But it's also here where we see Darkseid tell Starfire, who's hesitant to help, mainly because she doesn't want to lose control again. And Darkseid more or less just lets her know, like, no, this is where you need to lose control. Because if she doesn't, she's just gonna stand here and watch her friends die. But where he kind of gets her at is like, if the eschaton succeed and they kill him, then none of them will get the answers that they truly want to get from Darkseid. And at that point, she's just kind of like, alright, fine, I'll go ahead and wipe these dudes out. And when she does so, it's like so easy. And she's able to wipe them out like in a matter of seconds. And when this happens, it's like, it's really tough to measure like how powerful this display of hers is, mainly because the eschatons, they're a fairly new thing, and Darkseid, he isn't full Darkseid. So with them defeating him, it's tough to make that call as well. But this is also one of the points that Darkseid makes when they tell him to start explaining things, because they understand that he's lied to them prior to this point, but he also tells them that he had to because he had no other choice. Because it's not like before when he was at full power and he could just move however he wanted to, but at this point with his powers being scaled back, he's had to use more trickery and other devices in order to do what he felt like he needed to do. But so it's also here where Cyborg confronts him about what he had seen from the mother box on the machine world. And Darkseid doesn't deny what Cyborg had seen on that mother box, and he confirms with him that much of that information is true. But in his own defense, Darkseid tells Cyborg that he misinterpreted much of that information, because at the end of the day, it's not like black and white and not about being a hero or a villain, but for Darkseid it's about preserving life and about getting an extra bit of more power for himself, which is an understatement, but that's not something you can just brush over or leave out because it's an obvious factor. But also to show him more information about what he's talking about, Darkseid tells Cyborg to release one of his hands so he can access the other box and show them the whole plan in its entirety. Because with these relics that Darkseid had hidden, they were his contingency to fight back against what would come after the destruction of the Source Wall, which we know at this point was Perpetua. But for Darkseid, at the time where he collected and hidden these relics, he had did this as a precaution to an old prophecy of what was to come. And this precaution was something that he had put in place over the course of millennia. But as far as the whole thing with Starfire, Azrael, and Cyborg and them becoming gods, or being recognized as gods in these ancient cities, this is something that Darkseid had later set in place by using the other box to travel through hypertime and establish these myths that have now been around for thousands of years. But with adding them into the plans for his contingency, their purpose mainly is to assist him with him not being at full power. But as Darkseid continues to explain and he gets to the part where Cyborg had believed it to be a newer version of Apocalypse, Darkseid tells him that this is called the Sepulchre, and it was originally designed to be the new god's safe house against the destruction of the multiverse. But Darkseid would only be able to use it once brought back to full power and after he's combined the other box with the multiverse key. And it's like with telling them this, it's like he puts them in a pretty tough situation, because the way he describes it, he makes it seem as if without the Sepulchre that there will be total and utter destruction, even for the existing worlds within the Ghost Sector, which once again is something that is not necessarily true. Because as we know, even without it, like the anomaly that is the Ghost Sector, that is the very thing that protects them from the destruction of the Source Wall, to where if it hadn't been there, Darkseid would have disappeared like many of the other new gods. But with sticking to his story, which also includes Darkseid's necessity to be fully restored, he tells them like this is the only way, and he kind of guilt trips the heroes by telling them that they're the reason he's been diminished in power, they're the reason the Source Wall was broken in the first place, and it's almost as if it's their duty and obligation to join him and make this right. And it really presents the situation to where Starfire agrees, because with what they know at this moment, this is the only way they see to save anything or anyone at all. But also at this time you have Rapture, who has made his way to Tamarin with the Church of Azrael, who had pretty much come here to destroy Azrael, with him not being the quote-unquote true god that they had believed him to be. And when they arrive at Tamarin and confront Blackfire, they're ready to go through her if necessary, or at least try to get to Azrael. But instead she's like, they're not here, but I'll do you one better. I'll show you exactly exactly where they're at, and on top of that go with you to destroy them and Darkseid. And to do so, she'll assist the warriors of Azrael with the soldiers of Tamarin and organize a drop assault on the planet of Aelon, which is exactly where Darkseid and the others are right now. And so to say the least, they got a whole lot of trouble coming their way. But it really just shows you, like in the case of Blackfire, like previously when she had let Starfire go, it wasn't so much of an act of mercy rather than just a smart surrender, because as soon as she got some more help, she did not hesitate to go after her again, because she jumped on the first opportunity to go after her. But real quick, just want to give a shout out to all the Patreons. Thank you guys for supporting the channel. Randy J, T Freezy, Kendall M, Salmon D, and I'll never forget Salmon was like, it's salmon like the fish, just spelled different. But I was just like, okay, but I'll never forget that. But if anyone wants more information on how to support the channel, I got links down in the description, patreon.com/DopeSpill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again in the next one. Alright, later.